I want to begin with a question, one that cuts deeper than we often allow ourselves to go. Have you ever woken up in the morning feeling as though the world owes you happiness, and by evening, you find yourself wondering where it disappeared? If you have, then you are not alone. Happiness, not as a fleeting emotion, not as a fleeting burst of joy that comes and goes, but as a deep-seated sense of well-being. It feels impossible when life presses its hardest, when trials weigh heaviest, when your heart feels tender and exposed. We live in a culture that tells us happiness is found in comfort, achievement, applause, and ease. And yet, each of us, even those whom the world would say have it all, eventually meets a moment when happiness seems to slip through our fingers like sand. So today, I want to speak about something most of us feel but rarely articulate: how to remain happy even when life is hard. Not fake happiness, not numbness, not denial, but real, rooted, resilient happiness that emerges not in spite of pain, but through it. I want you to breathe deeply and let these words find the places in you that ache. You see, the first thing we must understand is this: happiness is not the absence of pain. Happiness is not a destination. Happiness is not a place we arrive at once and for all. Happiness is a state of being that coexists with struggle, a state of consciousness that does not deny suffering but dignifies it. We must recalibrate our hearts. We must learn to see life with eyes that can hold joy and sorrow in the same breath. How do we do that? First, let us understand the nature of life itself. Existence is not a guarantee of perpetual ease. It is built on impermanence. It is woven with change. It is a tapestry that contains both the bright threads and the dark ones. To be alive is to oscillate between ease and difficulty, between laughter and tears, between longing and fulfillment. There is a beauty in this truth once we accept it. Happiness is not found in resisting reality. Happiness begins when we stop denying what is. The sooner we embrace the truth that pain is a part of life, as inevitable as breathing, as real as the sunrise and the sunset, the sooner we free ourselves from the illusion that happiness depends on a life without hardship. There is a kind of peace that only comes when we accept that storms are part of life's weather pattern. You do not curse the rain for being wet. You do not curse the night for being dark. Pain, challenge, loss, these are like seasonal rains and nights, not signs of abandonment, but signs that gravity and change rule this world. So the first secret to staying happy even when life is hard is this: learn to accept what you cannot control. This does not mean giving up. It means giving in. Giving into the reality that some things simply are. When you stop wasting energy wishing life were different, you begin to have reserves of strength and clarity to engage with what is and to find meaning there. Meaning transforms pain. When you stop resisting reality, your heart stops breaking against things it cannot mend. There is a profound kind of freedom in acceptance. Now, let's talk about what acceptance is not. Acceptance is not apathy, resignation, giving up hope, pretending everything is fine when it is not. No. Acceptance is a deeper courage. It is the courage to face what is true without flinching. It is the resolve to see reality clearly without distortion. It is the clarity to act where you can and the wisdom to release what you cannot change. And when you do this, your heart becomes lighter, not because life has become easier, but because your resistance has dissolved. The second pillar of sustained happiness is gratitude. Not the kind of gratitude that comes when life is comfortable, but the kind that emerges in the midst of difficulty. Gratitude is not a feeling. Gratitude is a choice, and it is perhaps the most radical act of courage a human heart can make, to say, even in this pain, I can find something worthy of gratitude. Gratitude is not a mask we put on to hide our struggles. Gratitude is light that enters through the cracks of a broken heart and makes beauty out of brokenness. When we practice gratitude, not in spite of hardship, But through hardship, something remarkable happens. We begin to see that every pain carries a hidden lesson, every struggle carries a seed of growth, and every wound carries the possibility of wisdom. The human heart has an astonishing capacity for appreciation. What if we shifted our focus away from what is missing to what remains? What if, in the midst of loss, we remembered presence? What if, in the midst of hardship, we remembered breath? Gratitude rescues our happiness from the trap of comparison. It pulls us out of despair and anchors us to what is real, what we have, what is present, and what remains. Perhaps you have heard the phrase, happiness is a choice. It is true, but not in the shallow sense that we choose to feel happy all the time. Rather, we choose to seek goodness even when it is buried beneath difficulty. We choose to look for meaning. We choose to be grateful. This is not easy, but it is possible. Now let us move to another vital truth. Happiness must be internal, not external. The world keeps trying to sell us happiness through achievement, the approval, the possessions, the praise, the status, the comfort, and yet all of these are temporary. External happiness is like a sandcastle, beautiful for a moment, but always vulnerable to the tide. True happiness is not found in what the world gives you. It is found in what you cultivate within yourself. True happiness comes from a mindfulness, a presence, the inner peace, a stable heart, a meaningful relationship with the self and with the divine. When your source of happiness is external, you become subject to the fluctuations of the world, its praise, its criticism, its uncertainties, its losses. But when your happiness is internal, it becomes unshakable. It becomes like a well that no drought can dry, a heart that finds its joy in connection, in hope, in gratitude, in meaning. Such a heart can remain joyful even when circumstances are difficult. And how do we build such an internal foundation? By attending to the purification of the heart. This is a phrase that might sound lofty or abstract, but it is deeply practical. To purify the heart means to examine what truly resides there, not what we say we believe, but what we feel in times of stress. To purify the heart means to confront the ego, a fear, attachment to comfort, a desire for control, a anger, a resentment, the shame, the grief. It means recognizing that many of our unhappiness, bitterness, and suffering come not from external events, but from the attachment to outcomes, the clinging to expectations, and the fear of loss. Attachment is the root of so much suffering. But attachment does not disappear overnight. It dissolves slowly through awareness, patience, and surrender. This is why the wise say, to be happy, let go. Let go of the unrealistic expectation that life must be easy. Let go of the belief that happiness depends on circumstances. Let go of the idea that comfort is a right. Let go of the illusion that pain is shameful. Let go and watch your heart become lighter. When you purify your heart, you discover that your happiness does not depend on your condition. It depends on your connection. Connection to what is true, connection to what is real, connection to something greater than yourself. Happiness is not found in control, but in surrender. This is a paradox, but it is the heart of deep transformation. We try to fix everything, to manage everything, to control outcomes. But real peace comes when we surrender what we cannot control and focus on what we can nurture, our intentions, our responses, our attitude. When you stop clutching at life with tight, anxious hands, you create space to breathe, space to feel, space to grow, space to be present. When you become present, happiness begins to emerge even in the midst of hardship. Have you ever noticed how life's most precious moments often come when you are fully present? Not when you are planning, not when you are regretting, not when you are worrying, but when you are truly here. This is where joy resides, in the present moment. Pain may be present, discomfort may be present, loss may be present, but happiness can reside alongside these, because happiness is not an external condition, it is a state of presence. So the next time life feels heavy, stop, breathe, be here, feel. Allow your heart to become the space where life happens, not the battlefield where you fight reality. And as you do this, begin to notice something profound, that kindness, both given and received, has a way of softening the hardest moments. Kindness to yourself first. So often we are harsher to ourselves than the world ever is. We judge our weaknesses. We scold our mistakes. We punish our hearts. But happiness cannot thrive in a heart that is constantly at war with itself. Show kindness to your heart. Speak to yourself with compassion. Treat yourself the way you would treat someone you deeply love, with patience, tenderness, and respect. When life is hard, be gentle with yourself. This is not weakness. This is courage. This is self-respect. This is the soil in which happiness can root deeply. And when you begin to cultivate kindness within yourself, you begin to extend it outward to others. Kindness is contagious. When you show compassion in a world that can feel cold, you light a spark. When you give a gentle word to someone who is suffering, you offer them a moment of grace. When you choose empathy over judgment, love over hatred, presence over distraction, you begin to transform not only your own heart, but the atmosphere around you. This is how happiness expands, not through narcissistic self-indulgence, but through generous humanity. Now, let us address another truth. Your happiness will never be full until you understand your pain. You cannot bypass pain. You must go through it. Pain is not a curse to be avoided. Pain is a teacher. It reveals to you what is most important. It forces you to confront illusions. It strips away superficial attachments. It brings you closer to your authentic self. When you resist pain, you suffer twice, first from the pain itself, and second from the resistance. When you embrace pain as a teacher, you suffer once, and you learn. And when you learn, you grow, and happiness becomes deeper, richer, more real. There are moments in life when you will feel broken, not because you are weak, but because you are becoming whole. This longing you feel, this ache in your heart, it is not there to destroy you. It is there to awaken you. It is there to show you that your happiness cannot be borrowed from externals. It must be built from within, forged in the fire of struggle, tempered by hope, shaped by acceptance. Happiness is not a destination you arrive at. Happiness is the art of becoming whole while you are still healing. It is the courage to hold beauty and pain together. It is the capacity to say, I am wounded and I am grateful. I am struggling and I still choose joy. I am hurting and I will grow. This is not denial. This is liberation. This is transformation. And finally, the deepest happiness arises when you recognize that your story, every chapter, every wound, every joy, every tear is yours and only yours. And in that uniqueness lies your purpose. Your pain is not random. Your longing is not meaningless. Your struggle is not a flaw. It is part of your journey. And happiness is not some external gift handed to you. Happiness is the way you walk through your own story with courage, presence, gratitude, and profound compassion for yourself and others. So when life is hard, remember, your happiness is not lost. It is simply waiting for you to open your heart, breathe through the pain, choose gratitude, and walk with both strength and vulnerability into the sacred unfolding of your life. True happiness begins with the courage to face reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. So often, we resist the circumstances we cannot change, clinging desperately to the illusion that life must always bend to our expectations. We desire ease, comfort, and smoothness in every step, and when life refuses to comply, our hearts grow heavy with frustration, resentment, and despair. Yet the first step toward enduring happiness is the quiet, steady acceptance that some things are simply beyond our control. Acceptance does not mean surrendering to weakness or abandoning hope. It is not the act of giving up or resigning ourselves to passivity. It is a deliberate choice to see the truth clearly, to acknowledge both the darkness and the light, and to engage with life from a place of clarity rather than illusion. When we cease to fight against what is inevitable, we conserve precious energy that would otherwise be spent in resistance. This allows us to respond to life with a calm and open heart, focusing on what we can influence while releasing what lies outside our reach. There is a profound liberation in this perspective, for when we stop clinging to outcomes and start embracing the present moment, the heart is freed from the tension that comes from relentless struggle. Life will not always conform to our desires, but our hearts can learn to flow with it rather than against it, to navigate challenges with resilience and grace. Acceptance transforms suffering, not by erasing pain, but by softening its weight and granting us the ability to perceive hidden meaning in adversity. When a difficult moment arises, instead of resisting it with anger or denial, we can meet it with quiet acknowledgement, saying within ourselves, "This is the truth of now. I cannot control this, but I can choose how to respond." In this choice lies the seed of happiness, for happiness does not depend on flawless circumstances. It emerges when we release the expectation that life must be perfect, when we embrace the reality of impermanence, unpredictability, and the natural ebb and flow of existence. Even in the midst of hardship, there is room to cultivate peace when the mind and heart are aligned with reality rather than caught in the turmoil of unfulfilled desires. Each moment of acceptance is a small victory against suffering, a quiet reclaiming of the heart's capacity to be light even when the world is heavy. The practice of acceptance is not a single act, but a continual process, a gentle discipline that deepens with reflection and experience. It calls us to examine where we have been clinging too tightly, where we have been demanding that life comply with our expectations, and to release those demands with conscious awareness. Through this ongoing practice, our hearts become increasingly resilient, able to endure the storms of life without losing their capacity for joy. We learn that happiness is not contingent on the elimination of difficulty, but rather on the cultivation of equanimity, the recognition of reality as it is, and the ability to meet life with an open, receptive heart. Even in moments of struggle and uncertainty, happiness is nourished most deeply when we cultivate gratitude, not only in times of ease, but especially in the midst of difficulty, when life feels heavy and burdensome. Gratitude is not a fleeting emotion that arises spontaneously. It is a deliberate choice, an intentional act of the heart that shifts our perception from what is lacking to what is present and enduring. When we practice gratitude, we are not pretending that our struggles do not exist or masking our pain with false optimism. Instead, we are acknowledging reality in its fullness, including the hardships, while also recognizing the blessings, however small or hidden, that continue to surround us. In the quiet moments, when life seems to have stripped away everything, gratitude has the power to illuminate even the darkest corners of our experience. It invites the heart to pause, to breathe, and to see that despite loss, suffering, or disappointment, there remains something of value, something that sustains us. Gratitude is a radical act because it turns the heart outward even when inwardly wounded. It trains the soul to look for the sparks of light in a world that may appear shrouded in shadow. The simple acknowledgement of breath, the warmth of the sun, the presence of loved ones, or the lesson embedded in a painful experience can transform the heart, shifting focus from despair to reflection, from complaint to appreciation. It does not deny the reality of hardship, but it refuses to allow suffering to dominate the soul completely. Practicing gratitude also reshapes the way we interpret challenges. Instead of seeing them solely as obstacles or injustices, we begin to perceive them as opportunities for growth, for patience, for self-understanding, and for deepening our connection to what is sacred and enduring. when we look for even the smallest elements of good, our hearts become receptive to meaning in places where despair might otherwise dwell. In doing so, gratitude becomes a bridge between struggle and contentment, between pain and joy, between the external hardships of life and the internal peace that we can cultivate. Moreover, gratitude counters the tendency to compare, a habit that breeds discontent. By focusing on what we have rather than what we lack, we liberate ourselves from the endless cycle of envy, self-criticism, and dissatisfaction. This practice anchors us in the present moment, reminding us that happiness is not deferred until circumstances improve, but can be nurtured here and now, even amidst uncertainty. Gratitude also softens the heart, creating openness to kindness, connection, and generosity. When we recognize and appreciate what is already present, we naturally extend appreciation and compassion to others, cultivating joy that flows outward and returns to us in richer and deeper ways. In essence, gratitude transforms the lens through which we view life, allowing us to perceive beauty and meaning even when challenges abound, and it becomes a steady companion that sustains the heart when the weight of existence feels overwhelming. It teaches us that happiness is not merely a reward for favorable circumstances, but a cultivated way of seeing, a conscious alignment of the heart with truth, presence, and the enduring goodness that exists alongside every hardship. True, lasting happiness cannot be found in the fleeting applause of the world, the accumulation of possessions, or the approval of others. These external sources are fragile, impermanent, and often unpredictable, leaving the heart vulnerable to disappointment, comparison, and emptiness. When we place our hope for joy on achievements, comfort, or status, we tether our well-being to circumstances over which we have limited control, and every loss or setback threatens to unravel our sense of peace. Real happiness, the kind that endures even when life is hard, is cultivated internally. It begins in the heart and mind, in the conscious awareness of what truly sustains us beyond external validation. Internal happiness is rooted in mindfulness, the deliberate practice of being fully present in each moment, aware of the sensations, thoughts, and emotions that arise without judgment or resistance. Through presence, we discover that joy is not contingent on what the world offers, but can be nurtured in the quiet spaces of our awareness. Inner peace, another cornerstone of internal happiness, emerges when we align our intentions, actions, and perceptions with truth and wisdom. It is cultivated through reflection, self-awareness, and an honest assessment of our own hearts, recognizing where desires, attachments, and fears may distort our experience. By tending to these internal landscapes, we become less reactive to the fluctuations of life, more resilient in the face of challenges, and more capable of sustaining contentment even amid hardship. Meaningful connection is also a critical component of internal happiness. Whether through relationships, spiritual practice, or alignment with a higher purpose, connecting with what transcends the self grounds the heart and provides a wellspring of stability that external circumstances cannot erode. Such connection reminds us that our worth and joy are not dictated by fleeting events, but by enduring truths, values, and commitments. Cultivating internal happiness also requires the conscious choice to focus on what is within our control, our responses, attitudes, and perceptions, rather than wasting energy on what we cannot change. By directing attention inward and nurturing qualities like gratitude, patience, and compassion, the heart develops resilience that no external turbulence can entirely disrupt. Internal happiness is further strengthened through self-compassion, the gentle care and understanding we extend to ourselves in moments of struggle or failure. When we treat ourselves with kindness rather than judgment, we create fertile ground for joy to flourish, independent of worldly outcomes. It is the cultivation of these inner resources, mindfulness, reflection, alignment with truth, meaningful connection, and self-compassion that allows happiness to endure even when life is unpredictable or painful. While external pleasures may provide temporary satisfaction, they are unreliable foundations for a contented life. The heart that learns to draw joy from its own cultivated wellspring becomes less dependent on approval, material gain, or circumstance, and more capable of sustaining a quiet, resilient, and authentic happiness. Ultimately, internal happiness is a conscious and continuous practice, a way of being that can coexist with hardship, uncertainty, and imperfection, allowing the heart to remain centered, anchored, and capable of experiencing joy in the midst of life's inevitable trials. Happiness flourishes in a heart that has been purified, a heart that has begun to let go of attachments, resentment, and the harsh judgments it often casts upon itself. To cultivate such a heart is to engage in a gentle yet profound work of introspection, examining the beliefs, desires, and fears that shape our experience of the world. Many of our struggles, disappointments, and moments of despair do not originate from external events, but from the attachments and expectations we cling to, from the resistance to life as it unfolds, and from the unacknowledged wounds that reside quietly within us. Purifying the heart is not an act of perfectionism. It is the willingness to confront what is uncomfortable, to face the shadows of anger, fear, envy, and pride, and to invite light and awareness into these hidden places. As we undertake this work, we begin to recognize the ways in which self-criticism and harsh judgment have eroded our capacity for joy. We see that the heart cannot thrive while it is at war with itself, and that the first act of kindness we can offer is to treat ourselves with compassion. Self-compassion is not indulgence. It is the courageous acknowledgement of our humanity, the understanding that we are works in progress, and the gentle acceptance of our limitations and vulnerabilities. By offering ourselves patience and tenderness, we create the conditions in which happiness can take root, even amid difficulty. Once the heart learns to be kind to itself, it naturally extends this kindness outward, creating connections with others that are grounded in empathy, generosity, and understanding. Acts of kindness, both given and received, have the power to soften the hardest moments, to transform moments of tension into spaces of grace. When we approach others with compassion, we invite reciprocal understanding and a sense of shared humanity that nourishes the soul. Purification of the heart also requires an honest confrontation with attachments, the desire to control outcomes, to cling to comfort, to avoid pain, and to seek validation externally. These attachments, while natural, often create the deepest suffering because they place our happiness in the hands of forces beyond our control. By gently loosening our grip, by accepting that life unfolds with unpredictability and impermanence, we cultivate a heart that is resilient and flexible, capable of sustaining joy even when circumstances are challenging. This process is gradual and requires patience, reflection, and ongoing awareness. It is through this internal work that the heart becomes a sanctuary where happiness can dwell independently of external conditions. The purified heart is not immune to sorrow or difficulty, but it is able to meet them without being overwhelmed. It carries within it a steadiness, a lightness, and a capacity to see goodness even amidst hardship. By embracing this path of self-reflection, self-compassion, and release from attachments, we cultivate an internal environment where joy is nurtured, where resilience is strengthened, and where happiness is no longer a fragile response to circumstance, but a natural expression of a heart aligned with truth, kindness, and awareness. Happiness deepens when we embrace pain as a teacher rather than an enemy, when we allow the challenges and hardships of life to illuminate the truths about ourselves and the world around us. Too often, we resist suffering, striving to escape it, wishing it away, or pretending it does not exist, and in doing so we experience the weight of our trials twice, once in the pain itself, and again in our struggle against it. Yet there is a profound transformation that occurs when we stop resisting and begin to learn from what is, when we shift our perspective from seeing hardship as a curse to seeing it as an opportunity for growth, reflection, and self-discovery. Pain reveals what is most essential, stripping away illusions, exposing attachments, and clarifying the heart's deepest longings. It calls us to confront our limitations, fears, and unresolved wounds. And in this confrontation lies the possibility for authentic happiness to emerge. Happiness cultivated in this way is not dependent on the absence of suffering, but rather on our response to it. It is forged in the fire of adversity, tempered by patience, and shaped by the conscious choice to seek meaning and wisdom even when the circumstances are difficult. Every wound, every setback, and every disappointment carries within it a lesson, a hidden insight, or an invitation to deepen our understanding of ourselves and our connection to what is enduring. When we view pain through this lens, we begin to see that the challenges we face are not arbitrary, but are intimately tied to the development of our character, our resilience, and our capacity for compassion. Suffering opens the door to empathy, allowing us to relate to the struggles of others with genuine understanding and kindness. It teaches humility, reminding us that we are not the architects of every outcome and that life unfolds with a wisdom often beyond our comprehension. By embracing this truth, we cultivate a form of happiness that is both grounded and expansive, one that does not crumble when circumstances shift or when disappointment arises. Rather than fleeing from difficulty, we meet it with awareness, courage, and openness, recognizing that the heart can hold both sorrow and joy simultaneously. In this duality, we discover a richness of experience, a depth of presence, and a resilience that allows happiness to endure through life's inevitable trials. The process requires patience and self-reflection, a willingness to examine our responses to suffering, and an ongoing commitment to learning from every experience. When we adopt this approach, our struggles cease to define us as victims. Instead, they become teachers, guides, and companions on the journey toward a deeper understanding of what it means to be alive. Happiness becomes not a fleeting escape from pain, but a cultivated state of awareness, gratitude, and connection that persists even when the heart is tender, the body weary, or the world uncertain. In learning to see pain as an integral part of growth and transformation, we begin to walk through life with a heart that is both resilient and open, capable of sustaining joy in the midst of trials, and of recognizing that every challenge carries within it the potential to deepen our capacity for love, meaning, and authentic happiness